morning. I'm here in number 8 Grosvenor Road in the Sisters of St. Louis community, and I'm meeting here with Sister Maireád Hughes, who moved here less than a year ago after spending 40 years in West Dublin in Tallaght, specifically in Jobstown. And we're going to talk about Sister Maireád's time there in youth development and education. So I'm going to take, good morning, Maireád, and I'm going to take you right back to 1980. And for anybody who's watching this from Ireland, or even indeed in the UK, 1980s in this part of the world was quite a grim place to be. There was a lot of youth, a lot of unemployment, a lot of youth unemployment, and lots of problems, social problems like drug abuse and all that kind of thing. So I'm going to pass it over to Maireád now. So, Maireád, if you could, with that brief introduction I've just given, can you tell me what life was like in Jobstown? It was quite a new area in 1980.
Yeah, they built up council houses, but there were no facilities really. And myself and Dr Kate Ganter, who was a child psychiatrist, and Fr Denis O'Connor was a curate in the parish. He was also a medical doctor, actually. He still is. And we got a group of young people and did the 6-week course with them. Now, they used to come to the house, which was a community house, and I was always in a bit of trouble because either something would be broken or taken. There was always some trouble after it. But anyway, eventually we decided we really needed to get a centre. So Dennis was up visiting the houses up in a new place called Sundale. And they were actually private houses, low-cost private houses, but they couldn't sell them because they were totally vandalised. And which became Youth Horizons, were the first 2 houses. And they were completely vandalised, new buildings, utterly vandalised. Even the fireplaces were gone and the stairs and everything. So we got them on a knockdown price. Right. In fact, the developers did well out of it because when people came and saw them done up, they were able to start selling all the rest of them, you know. So
you did them a favour. Before I'd love to hear you talk about the renovation of those houses. So you had yourself and Dr. Kate and Father Denis had identified a need in that area. There was no school in the area. All the children were having to be bused to other areas to go to school. Very high unemployment. There was something like 70% adult unemployment.
It's like 67 or 68%.
Yeah, very high unemployment. And there was a population around 6,000 at that point. No school, no jobs. Sure. So you saw the need to develop a youth education centre and a youth development centre. So you purchased these 2 houses that had been vandalised at a very low cost. Tell us about the renovation, because I've read some stories that you were doing a lot of bartering to get these houses renovated.
There were a group of mainly women who came in, and I still remember them painting, but I'm very bad at painting, you know, to be all over the place. So they'd send me out to get things for nothing. Yeah. That was my job, you know.
I believe you went to Cement Roadstone and all sorts of places to get bricks for free and tiles for free. Oh,
only remember
I have my
now.
sources.
And we'd get wallpaper. I remember them sending me off with a few rolls of wallpaper to swap them for different ones.
I read that too.
we hadn't even bought the first lot, you know. So the houses were done up, and I have a sister who was a trained home ec teacher, you know, not working. And she said, "Oh, I'd love to work here," when she saw the kitchen. And I said, "You're on." So she actually ran a very good course for young women. Well, there was 1 or 2 men, you know, but mostly young women. For 10 years she ran it.
And that was your sister?
Yeah.
Oh, very good. So when it opened its doors first, I think it was 1988, I think it opened its...
Was it?
I came into operation in 1988. What kind of courses did it offer for the youth of the area at that time?
Well, at that time, we'd know where I was working at the school, as I told you, but there was nowhere for them to do any of their homework or studies. So during the day, well, it was 3 mornings, we'd have the older young people, and then the kids would come down after school and we'd give them something to eat, and they'd sit and do their homework and give them a bit of help with their homework. And then different courses that came up, we kind of like grabbed anyone
that could help out.
That could
And
help
I
out,
believe
yeah.
you opened a creche at some point.
That's right, yeah. It started with one girl with a baby trying to do her leaving cert, and she'd be in the corner and the baby would be crying. So we decided we'd have a creche, and we opened a creche. And then we needed more space. And we used to run an annual golf classic, which made a lot of money, it was great.
Yeah. So you were constantly fundraising.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was there any funding from the government?
Yeah, there was. I remember at one meeting, the principal of the secondary school said, you'd be entitled to adult education funding,
Yeah.
So I applied to the which was then the VEC.
Yeah.
So they funded the teachers for the school,
very good.
classes,
Very good.
Yeah.
And very soon after it opened, I think you were kind of targeting kids that had left school early. You wanted them to help them actually get their leaving certificate.
Yeah, what used to happen would be people would come to you, and I'd be walking along. I was involved with the parish as well,
Yeah.
And I'd be walking along and somebody'd say, could you do anything for him? He won't go to school for me. And, so it was usually lads, more than girls. So we started classes then for them. It was a bit casual in the beginning,
Yeah.
In fact, there was one boy, I remember him well. He's working now up in Germany maybe. But he'd be sitting there and then he'd say, I have to go now, and he'd be up and gone, And so we 2s and 3s. And so eventually a lot of them did well. Like they wanted to do the leaving. It wasn't us that wanted them to do it. They wanted to be like the others,
Yeah.
I could never fathom whether it was they wanted to be able to go out, the way the leaving certs go out at night and have their night out.
You weren't sure what their motivation was.
Yes.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that developed, and we got the funding for the teachers then from VTB. So gradually it developed into a full
how many
leaving
would you
cert.
have kind of had, say, in a typical year, kind of, say, completing their leaving cert through Youth Horizons?
Well, like this year, for instance, we've only got 8 doing the leaving.
Yeah.
We started with 12, but they were ones that were involved with COVID and that,
Yeah.
But we've 12 then in what we call fifth year,
Yeah.
And we think they'll all stay.
That's great.
Yeah.
And have any of them managed to go on to third level education?
Oh, yeah, a lot of them. Yeah, a lot of them. Yeah.
And what kind of courses would they have done? It's probably a huge variety now at this stage.
Yeah, big variety.
Yeah.
You see, the main teacher now is a man called Paul Gaffey. And Paul was an electrician before he did his degree to be a teacher.
Oh, wow.
So he's got great influence in the whole idea of apprenticeships. He knows where to go, where to send them.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's
we make sure everyone's fixed up. I mean, that's his job. Like when they leave, he rings them regularly and they come in and see him. But he's taken over the school end of things now, so he would employ teachers and do timetables.
Yeah.
And
I'm just there was other courses as well, like even though it focuses really on the youth development, there is adult education. So are those adults that are returning to education didn't get their leaving cert, or is it other courses that they're doing?
No, it was the first, but we don't have them anymore now. We're so busy with
the young people.
But music is important.
Yes.
We always have, we had a music school, but kind of died a bit during COVID, but it's back up again now running, and they can do individual tuition. Usually if anyone really wants to do something, we'll find a way
of doing it for them.
A teacher or paying for it. We always do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic initiative, and it's a real testament to you and to Dr. Kate and Fr Denis that 40 years later it's still up and running, and it's still as successful as ever.
Now the creche is wonderful, actually.
Yeah.
Actually, it won a prize as for, I'm not saying it's the best creche in Dublin, but it won some prize for excellence,
Oh, fantastic.
And it's super. You'd love to go into the creche.
I remember seeing you on the television, Maireád.
Oh, no.
Or actually, maybe it was photographs, but an ex-pupil or a graduate of Youth Horizons, shall we say, who designed a garden and was in Bloom, the garden show in the Phoenix Park.
That's right.
And he had been a past pupil of Youth Horizons.
That's right.
And you were there pictured with him at his beautiful show garden in Bloom, which for anybody who's not aware, this is kind of like the Irish equivalent of the Chelsea Flower Show. It was a huge achievement for him.
When he was a young lad, he told, well, you see, we had kids coming down from school as well to do their homework. You know? But he was telling me he loved gardening. So I brought him up. I knew Mrs. David up in Newlands Garden Centre, So I brought him up to see it, and she was really nice to him. Then she gave him a weekend job, you know.
Yeah.
And so he eventually got into it, and then he got into the what's this called, the training place? The Botanic Gardens.
Oh yes,
There's
Botanic
a
Gardens.
school
Yes,
up there, a
yes,
college,
absolutely,
yeah.
yes.
So he got in there and he qualified. Then he opened up his own garden.
Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah.
I'd say the variety of, I suppose, paths or careers that the students
Yes,
of Youth
yeah,
Horizons
yeah,
have gone down has probably been huge. I think I read something where there's a couple of engineers,
yeah,
you have teachers, horticulturalists, there's
yeah.
probably
Well,
electricians, mechanics.
yes,
It's
yeah,
incredible in an area where employment was so big
yeah, yeah,
that Youth Horizons has given them such hope and such
yeah.
an outlet for their
Well,
creativity
it
and their
did
ability.
actually. Yes, yeah.
You know,
See, a lot of the, especially the boys we had, they wouldn't have been attending, and
yeah,
they would have been bullied a bit, and you know.
yeah,
Whereas when they come to us, they're looked after. You know what I mean?
yes, yeah.
I mean, the softer side of boys, they look after as well.
Absolutely.
So they
They're
can
just
talk
as
to Paul
sensitive
at
as the
any time.
girls.
Like,
Yeah.
they'll come in to see him.
Yeah.
Oh, way after they've left, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it is good.
So, Mairead, it's been great talking to you. You're here now in Rathgar, but I believe you still make it out. You still travel back to Tala, I think, at least once a week, from what I've heard.
Yeah, well,
You may be retired officially, but
Yeah.
it sounds like you'll never really retire.
I know I
from-
have. I mean,
yeah,
it's running totally without me, but
yeah,
I go out to see them.
yeah,
And see people. I have lots of
yeah,
friends up there, you know.
yeah, yeah,
I lived there for 40 years.
yeah.
Like.
And what would you say you miss most about, I suppose, Tala or Youth Horizons or?
Well, I'd already stopped working, you know,
Yes.
in it,
Yeah.
except I'd go up. I don't know. Well, I don't really miss much because I go up and
Yeah.
meet them, you know.
Yeah, you're still there.
Yeah, still after. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Mairead, that's been fantastic. Is there anything you'd like to say that I haven't asked you or we haven't talked about in relation to?
What do I think? Don't know now. I think, like, some of the kids themselves will call it a home from home, you know.
Yeah.
And what's nice is that the staff, they really are interested in them, you know, and
Yeah.
they're very fond of them. You have no unpleasantness at all,
Yeah.
ever, you know.
So I suppose the staff that are in there,
Yeah.
it's like a vocation for them as well.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
love working there. You know.
Yeah.
But we have a community employment scheme, you see, so most of our non-teaching staff are on community employment.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
or
that's
jobs
fantastic.
initiative. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So it's great. And the girl now who's managing the overall management, you know, financial and all
Yeah.
that, Geraldine, she's a local girl.
Great.
She really, you know, developed herself.
So most of the employees are locals, or a lot of them?
A lot of them, because you see, the non-teaching staff would be community employment,
Yeah.
so they'd be local, you know.
Yeah.
And the teachers, of course, come from wherever you can get them.
Yeah, indeed, indeed.
But some teachers from the school now would come down and, you know, they'd work with us, like the music teacher who comes on a Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah.
Because the school is closed.
Yeah.
I think it's changed now, though.
Yeah.
But they love music, funnily enough.
Well, music's such an outlet, isn't it?
Yeah,
you know,
it is,
it's chance. I think people who don't realise they're creative.
Yes,
I think everybody has a little bit of creativity in them.
Yeah.
And it's a great way of kind of bringing that out and a kind of a lovely release for people.
Yeah.
You know?
We've a great board of management now. We've a new one since last year, but they're very committed, you know.
Yeah.
And they used to run a fundraiser every year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure about this year, what's happening. So that's what kept us going, with money, because you need money when you're paying teachers and that.
I think that's always kind of the biggest challenge, isn't it? Just to keep the funding going.
We never worry because it comes from somewhere.
Yeah.
It always comes. Yeah.
Well, Mairead, thank you very much. That's been a pleasure talking to you.
Oh, yeah. I didn't tell you we built on, did I?
No, you didn't
built
actually.
An extension.
Yeah.
Because we hadn't really enough room, you know. So we built 2 classrooms and a creche.
On the grounds of where the 2
attached onto the 2 houses, you know.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So what's the kind of, do you know the square footage of the entire? No. Okay. 2 houses and 2
3-bedroom houses and then joint, you know.
Yeah.
Split. In the beginning, I was really worried when we started breaking the walls between them.
Yeah.
Because I said, what happens if this doesn't work?
Or what if it falls down?
I'll be gone. Not that it falls down. But, yeah.
But you had no need to worry because 40 years later it's thriving.
That's true.
Yeah,
it is really, it is. Yeah.
Were telling me a little bit about the importance of, I suppose, food and nutrition for the young kids that were coming into Youth Horizons. Do you want to tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes, food is really very important, you know, and I love the idea of smelling lunch being cooked. And so, well, obviously the youngsters in the creche would eat. I never saw anything like the amount they eat. And then the others, we try and get them interested in decent food, you know.
And would you've done cookery lessons or anything like that with them, or was it just make sure that they were well fed, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, we did some cookery lessons actually to try and get them to learn how to cook for themselves even.
Yeah.
Because it's amazing the number of homes where there's no cooking, basically.
I'd say some of them probably came in hungry, did they, to school?
Some of them are so hungry they can't even eat, you know what I mean? But they won't talk about it.
Yeah.
I never know why they're so tall, but they're very thin, you know?
Yeah.
So you can grow tall, I suppose.
But they were well nourished anyway in Youth Horizons.
Well, we try, you know, we can't force them, but yes, we do try.
Yeah.
If you get somebody in a group who, you know, appreciates a meal and all, the others tend to follow them, you know, but it takes a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think boys at that age in Dublin don't like eating in front of people, you know. It's a funny thing.
Not my son.
No. But so it's an important part, really. Yeah. The kitchen is the heart of the place, really, you know.
Yeah. And were there particular favourites that they liked, or?
Well, it's a while since I started. They love chips, of course, naturally.
Of course, yeah.
And I know some of them would eat decent meal.
Do you think that the fact that they were kind of, I suppose, fed when they were there, would that have attracted some of the kids to go there in the first place? That they knew they were going to get a meal?
I'm not sure now. I never investigated that.
Yeah. Because I know in some certain deprived areas, stuff that I would have read that, you know, having, say, a breakfast club, for example, would be a kind of a carrot that would get these kids in the door in the first place.
Yes. No, I'm not sure about that. Yeah. Because I wouldn't have.
Yeah. It's possibly was the case.
Possibly. And then you see you've, you know, the staff too. It's kind of a social thing.
Of course.
The meals.
Yeah.
And everyone is together, you know, we don't separate staff from students.
So we
all eat in the same
so getting to know each other as well. It's nice that you have that mixture in the kind of the generations and the people there.
Yeah.
It's a really good idea. Yeah. So we were chatting as well there, Maireád, about some of the other sisters of St. Louis that were involved at different stages in Youth Horizons. Would you like to tell me a little bit about the sisters and what their involvement was in Youth Horizons?
Yeah, sure. Máirín Murphy worked with us for a number of years. She taught maths and she taught French, and she was involved in most of our activities and travels and all the rest of it. And then Maura Muldowney taught art for a number of years, and like that too, she was involved. You know, I think it was twice a week she used to come up, and she was involved with some of the activities. And then Kathleen Kelleher did counselling for a good number of years, Lord mercy on her. And
Frances Gates, I think you mentioned as well.
Frances was in the parish. She was in the community with me for years, and she worked very hard in Jobstown Parish, you know.
Yeah.
Now, she wasn't really involved in Youth Horizons, but she'd help anytime.
It was more out in the community in that area,
exactly.
Yes.
But if ever we needed help, she'd be involved, you know.
Yeah. And then I think you also mentioned Mary Gibbons.
Mary Gibbons taught English for a number of years. Yeah. She was brilliant.
That's great. So there was a lot of sisters involved.
One of her students, one of her better students, is now an English teacher.
Very good.
She's involved in the local school.
That's great.
Yeah.
So she's passing on her legacy onto the next generation.
Exactly, yeah.
That's great.
That's grand.
That's great. Thank you.